welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. Been a little while since my last video, but it's been a stinky hot summer here, and after working outside all day and sweating, I simply just didn't have the motivation to come down to the shop and do more of the same. So my apologies, but summer is coming to an end. It's beginning of September now. Temperatures are much more manageable, and I do have an awful lot of projects I want to work on. And I was noticing that a fair number of them were going to involve acrylic. And I went and reviewed my 2 acrylic videos that I had already done. And I noticed there's a few things that I didn't cover in those. Most of those were about how to do the welding, and of course how to be safe while you do the welding, all that sort of stuff. But there are some other important details. I'm going to cover those here. I'm going to leave links to the other 2 videos below, and you can go and review those if you are interested in the actual acrylic welding process. So, to start off with, the most important thing here, as you saw what I was doing, is you need a solid saw stop, because if you have all your pieces of exactly the same length, and of course cut all the dimensions that are the same at the same time, it'll make your job an awful lot easier. So that is the first step. And of course, if you haven't cut acrylic before, I do recommend that you get a couple of scrap pieces and get a feel for it, because the proper rate of feed is important. I mean, I don't really think about it a whole lot anymore. Every now and then I do mess up and I do end up with a few chips, but if you have a good sharp blade and a fine tooth blade, you won't have too much issues. The next thing you need to do, especially if you're doing the kind of things that I do, is a bunch of jigs for the various types of things you want to do. In this particular case, these are going to be the lids for a filter. And the important thing here is I already have built them before, so I have this jig. And you'll notice there's a block, it's a 2x4. I cut it to the proper height between the base of the jig and my vise, so that it's really solid. There's no deflection at all. Any kind of deflection when you're working with acrylic causes a non-square edge, and you end up with issues when it comes to welding them. And the other thing I like to do, this is not really necessary if you have sharp drill bits, but what I like to do is, the first hole I cut is a 1/16 of an inch undersized for what I want, and now I'm putting in the proper size, and I'm going to trim off that last 1/16. That actually helps quite a bit, especially if your drill bits are getting a little bit older and not quite as sharp as you'd like, and this will just trim off that last tiny little bit, and you end up with a perfect cut that way. Very important to make sure that things are as clean as possible. Not so much for aesthetics, though that does help, of course, because everything will look nice and clean. But the other thing it does is, if you have any kind of issues in your technique for welding, it's going to help you quite a bit for that. So as you can see, there's a whole pile of holes here. I'm going to drill a whole pile of them, and this is just to emphasize the fact that if you're going to do any kind of fabrication at all, make sure you do have the proper templates all built up, because that way, as you can see here, I am going back and remembering how many turns it takes to get the proper amount of spacing for the holes and everything else, so it all turns out looking nice. Again, mostly just for aesthetics, but also in this particular case, because these are going to be filters, you want the proper water flow through them, and it does, like I said, does help sort of that thing. And again, like I said, I mean, 6 months from now, you may want to rebuild whatever project you're working on because it worked out really well, or whatever, and this way you don't actually have to keep notes or something. You actually have the jig, and you just write on the jig what it was for, and that's it. You can make as many knockoffs of it as you want. So I'm not going to go through all of this, because as you can see here, let's see now, I'm trying to remember how many holes I cut, but let's just say there's an awful lot of them. I was building 4 filters. These are just the lids. There were 3 trays in each of them. They all had also a grid of holes in them, including the center hole. And yeah, it took a while. Not as much as you would think, though, because I am cutting, or in this case, drilling holes in 4 at a time. So that means I only had to do 3 setups, and that does save quite a bit of time. And that's the other thing about using jigs for this sort of thing, is it does save an awful lot of time. Let's see now, I think I was at the saw for about, the drill for about 20 minutes for each setup. So if I had to do that 4 times, so that would be 3 times 20 to start off with for each of the layers, and then multiply that by 4. Yeah, I've been in here for quite a few hours, so this made it much simpler. Even still, I was getting kind of tired of it. I know a lot of people say, wow, why don't you get a CNC and have that? But again, I don't have any space for that sort of thing. I'm going to show you just this here. These are the bases for the filter trays, and they are 1/4 inch instead of 1/8. And the difference here, of course, is it requires more force to go through them. Obviously, you don't want to press too hard or you'll melt the acrylic. But as you see, there's no deflection at all in the setup, and that's very important. And of course, after I do this particular drill bit size, I will switch over to the one that's the 1/16 of an inch bigger, and yeah, it makes for a nice, clean, neat hole, as you can see here. And at the end of this video, I am going to show you, actually that's coming up pretty soon, what I was actually making here, just to show you how many pieces I cut and how many, all of this stuff that had to be welded. But again, the important thing here for this particular video is make sure you use templates, make sure you use the proper jigs, and make sure everything is a nice solid mount. That way you'll end up with nice clean cuts. And as you can see here, there's an awful lot of pieces. So, you know, if you make your job that much more, labor free, you're more likely to get this done. So there you go. That is all going to get welded together. I am going to show you the final product in the end. Like I said, those are 4 filters, and they're going to be used in, as you can see to my right there, I have some filter designs. If anyone's interested actually in aquariums and aquarium maintenance and that sort of stuff, these filters are going to go work in those tanks, and I have some interesting new filter designs. I'll leave a link, I guess, to the other channel for that as well. And yeah, these are my favorite version for box filters because of a bunch of different reasons that you may not be interested in, so I won't really go into it here. But like I said, I'll leave a link to that other channel, and you can go have a look at that. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for putting up for my little bit of absence, and I will see you in the next video, and bye for now.